So I want to get into this with you, Nigel, real quick, just because now you're doing the freelance and you're working for NFL and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get there?
Yeah, do you trip and fall into that, or do you gotta
how do you go? How do you get on the list where NFL goes, Nigel?
Do you sell your soul?
We want to book you for the rest of the season. I mean, how does that work?
And call you back the next year.
Down in middle, the Delta of Mississippi, there's Crossroad,
and there's this old lady with a snake.
For me, I'm more of like the front end of it.
I'm just making it up. Of a similar nature or character.
JMKast. JMKast.
But we get shocked often by Chris.
If you Google my name, it always pulls up Ric Flair and Blackjack Mulligan. That's another story for another time, though.
It's always another story for another time.
Yeah, when are we getting that story?
Right? I don't know.
Is there really another story?
It's every story we tell is my consideration for the other story for another time. Because I figure we're going to do more episodes.
Well, we have another story each episode. But
welcome back to the JMKast. I'm Rick Mulligan.
I'm Greg T. Johnson.
If you saw our last episode, we were at Standard Service in Heath. We're still there.
We're still here.
Because we're recording back-to-back because it just saves time. And also, this is going to be part 2.
Yeah, part 2 of Nigel, who has left us, and that's why we had to do an extra long episode, and now we have to do a intro to...
He was going to a beer garden or something.
Yeah, some sort of beer festival.
That's awesome. Good
that's awesome, but we wanted to let him and his family go have a good time.
And Nigel, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate you kind of wedging us into a tight schedule there.
Yeah, and I mean, you're going to enjoy hearing the rest of his story as we, split it up into 2.
Cannot remember I don't know where the split's going to be, so I don't know what's in part 2.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you. I mean, towards the end... what were we talking? Like kind of his favorite moments.
Yeah, I think that was in there.
Something like that was kind of in the end. But anyway, subscribe, like, comment, share the JMKast.
Please share.
As
subscribe.
If you're listening, obviously it's on iTunes and it's also on YouTube.
Yeah. Hopefully this one will be good with the background music.
It's awfully sunny out here.
There's not a cloud in sight.
It feels good, but because the sun is so intense, our equipment is
the GoPros keep overheating.
It's feeling a little hot.
A little bit.
So, but anyway, so we got to do this because we're just not going to have an episode now without this.
Word of the day.
Word of the day.
I like it.
All right. Well, that is now officially word of the day.
Intro music for word of the day.
Why is it at the end of that we always sound drunk?
Because you were, right?
No, then I wasn't. But it's like at the end of it.
Okay, it's going to be hard for me to actually do these words.
You can't read your phone?
Yeah, it's so bright. Maybe if I put on those sunglasses, that's not going to help either. Anyway, so the first word is boomy sound. Boomy sound.
So what?
We're going to start talking about sound terms.
I don't know this. I don't think I think I know what it is, but is that like the boom mic overhead? Is that what you're?
No, boomy sound is like a type of how you would describe the sound when you're listening to it, like kind of muddy, boomy.
I've never used that term.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to read.
Okay.
I have a picture of a bass drum.
Okay, that makes sense.
As kind of the descriptor.
Okay.
But let's see the words that are kind of. Oh my goodness.
This is what happens when you do a podcast outside iPhones, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Like it's giving me. Okay, a boomy sound is heavy in the low end and lacks definition.
All right, that makes sense. Boomy. Okay, boomy.
So it's more low, boomy.
trying to think of I'm trying to think of something we've ever dealt with that I would say could say that. I don't think I run into that one very often.
No, I mean, if you go somewhere and say the person talks like in a real low voice, maybe
like a
yeah. I think Boomy and Muddy would be kind of almost confused
between
the two.
Muddy
Boomy was
me,
probably be still a little cleaner.
Because, Muddy to me is unusable. Like, if something's muddy, I'm not using it.
Right.
Boomy, it seems to me like it might be a little salvageable. Okay, I like that one. And then, so what's the second one? If you're able to see it on your phone.
Well, I mean, I can go with Muddy.
No.
Muddy is also in there. Here, I'll tell you the description of Muddy. Mud is typically associated with an excess of 180 kilohertz to 300 hertz. If you have a muddy mix, start by attenuating those frequencies.
Okay.
So I'm guessing those are kind of lower in frequency.
Muddy to me sounds kind of weird.
That's how I would. Yeah, I mean
that would be muddy to me.
Yeah, but I don't think that's what they're saying. I think because I think that would be more distortion.
Right. Maybe I look at it as,
maybe in the audio world we don't know what
we look at it
about.
different. Yeah, because we're not. I'm guessing that they have different audio. People have much more different specific terms. Okay.
And then of course there's the good old word clean.
Well, clean is perfect. Clean's what you want.
Yes, clean is the goal.
Clean is not what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, we have all kinds of background noise.
Clean is when you hear nothing except the words that you want to hear recorded.
Here we go.
Clean is the goal.
Clean, a lack of distortion and an accurate input to output relationship.
Yeah. Clean.
Characterized a clean signal.
Yeah, clean. Nice, clean. No distortion, no junk, no. Like, we're hardwired, so we're usually going to sound pretty clean. But
yeah,
obviously
and
we're dealing.
We try
with
to stay close. Nigel was a little distant from his mic, and I wanted to say something, but
he doesn't do this as much as we do.
Yeah,
I realized a couple times I was backed off as well, but I was aware of it, so I spoke up a little bit more, and I did that.
Okay, Dana.
Well, that would be like this, wouldn't it? Wouldn't this be? And then I wasn't even close.
No, but God help him. We tell him often, you gotta be in the mic, and yelling is not good usually for mics anywhere.
Yeah, I don't wanna.
I mean, unless.
But
I mean, this kind of yelling is.
And the only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys? Yeah!
Nigel, how about them Cowboys?
Yeah, and how about that Cooper Rush? That's Nigel would say.
Right. Yeah, he liked that.
He did. He liked some Cooper Rush, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, check out. Hopefully, you're still sticking around. Check out part 2 of Nigel. He's such an interesting guy. I'm
one of my favorite guys.
Cannot wait to have him back.
And
I want to have him back when we don't have a time crunch. We can really.
Yeah. When
really
he's not trying to get out of here.
Yeah.
So we can talk to him more about really his business.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get much into that. And I mean, that's the great thing about Nigel is he has so much experience in kind of the stuff we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Like just the business end.
Yeah.
That he's such a good person just to have in your pocket to talk to, and I mean he's always been a good friend for me.
I've reached out to him a couple times to ask him little things. He's like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And try this, try that. And he's an excellent tool, man. I'm glad to have met him through you.
Well, you're welcome. Anyway, here's Nigel McGregor, part 2.
So my question for both of you guys then, being that you've done this, do you have that moment like for yourself? Obviously, you said going to work in the World Series, but like the interview or got to do one thing where afterwards, like before you're like, I'm going to get to do this, but afterwards you're like, oh my God, I just did that. Because I have one, but I'm curious to hear your guys'.
Lay it on us, and I'll think about what mine is, because I'm not sure.
I have several, but I mean, right at the top, though, for me, being the Mavs fan I am. Yeah. I was there when they won in Miami, in the locker room with the champagne going up, and then I was also there right at the exit when Dirk came back and was crying because they had just won.
Wow.
And he's like right there in front of me. So I got to see that moment like in person in front of me, And then, I mean, there's so many other moments and that at the end of that game. I mean, I didn't sleep at all that night, mainly because they wanted me to work the morning shows too.
I was going to say,
but
work related.
That's the way it goes in news.
But I mean, I would not trade that work experience for anything. Being the Mavs fan, I mean, I was 8 years old watching black and white Lakers and Mavs playoff games. So in my room and to be there when they actually win it.
That's awesome.
I was yeah. So, I mean, that's probably the top of the top, but there's so many other things of celebrities and things like that I enjoyed.
Right.
But I think that's the moment that I'll never forget that one.
Right.
So I grew up a Tigers fan.
Okay.
And I would go to games with my grandpa all the time and my uncle and just huge Tigers fan. And my grandpa owned a heating and cooling business. Well, by the time I was around, my uncles owned it, but I would drive with him a lot. Essentially babysitting me, but I didn't realize it. Mm-hmm. But we would listen to Tigers games because the Tigers played a lot of day games back at that time. So we were always listening to Ernie Harwell. And I was just the biggest, loved his play-by-play. I mean, like, my favorite, anytime somebody sees somebody strike out where they're not swinging, I always hear his voice go, standing there like the house on the side of the road. Like, it's just always, I get the nod at my old TV station to do opening day. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to do opening day. This is awesome. I have no idea what to expect. No idea the workload, nothing. I have no clue as to what the day's about to be. Well, my reporter somehow didn't get his field passes, so I had to go down on the field by myself before the game. And I'm walking around and I'm trying to get sound from anybody that's available on the field. And there's no one. It's just not. And I see about 12 or 13 guys crowded around somebody doing an interview, and I realize it's Ernie Harwell. And I'm like, okay, I'm never getting into this. It's the end of it anyway. I'm not going to get, that sucks. Like, I'm kind of bummed. Mm-hmm. And everyone kind of disperses, and he's just standing there by himself. And I walk over and I go, excuse me, Mr. Harwell, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions? And he goes, absolutely. What would you like to know? And I'm in my head freaking out. I don't
know what I want to know.
And I said, what's opening day? Like, for you, what's opening day? Like, what's your favorite story from opening day? And he tells me this story, and I don't hear a word of it because I'm so... And he gets done, and I almost ask him verbatim the same question. Like, almost verbatim. And he gives me a completely different answer.
Oh, awesome.
And I put my camera down afterwards, and I said, thank you, Mr. Harwell. I go, I got to be honest with you. I'm so nervous to interview you. I asked you the same question twice, I think. And he goes, I got 16, 17 different answers for that. Don't worry about it. And he pats me on the back, and he goes, good luck, take care, and walks away. And I was just nice. And I'm almost in tears, fighting, But I get to meet him about 4 years later. I met him. And I had a little more interaction, and I mentioned to him, because my grandpa hadn't passed at the time, and I mentioned that my grandpa had passed, and he apologizes, and shakes my hand. I get a picture with him.
That's cool.
And he walks around the corner, and I broke down like you wouldn't believe. Wow. And my boss looks at me, and she's this hard-nosed, tough witch of a lady, and she's like, what are you crying for? And, someone kind of explains it to her or whatever. So the next day, I left. I went home. And about an hour and a half later, she calls me and she goes, hey, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm at home. And she's like, any chance you can swing back by the station? You live close, right? And I'm like, yeah. And I swing back by, and she printed that picture out for me. She had it printed out for me full size. And she goes, I just talked to my husband, and he explained that to me. I apologize for the way I responded. I'm sorry. That's the nicest thing that woman ever did. And she was, after that, never even close to that nice, before or after.
Right.
And that's the only time she's ever been that nice to me.
Probably the only time she's ever been that nice.
To anybody.
She had a moment.
Yeah. So, but that's mine. So that's cool. You have one or?
I was in an event for Bob Dole, and this is, I'm not a big Bob Dole fan necessarily. I mean, but it was just a cool thing. Yeah, right. He always had his pen in his hand because his hand was messed up. But the whole world is upstairs in this big conference room waiting for Dole to show up. He was running for president, and they're waiting for him to show up for this press conference thing, and he's late. He's like an hour late, and his local handler's just like going nuts. And so we go down, we break off from the riser upstairs, and we go down to the front door to wait on him, just to get a shot of him coming in. And his handler's like, oh, you can get a shot, but do not ask him any questions. Just get him walking by, and then go up and get, to the press conference room. So he walks in, and of course my reporter's like, Mr. Dole, can I ask you a couple questions? And he said, absolutely. And so we go over into a corner booth, a round booth, and the three of us sit down, and they sit there and talk for about 15 minutes, and we do this interview. It's a one-on-one interview with Bob Dole in his presidency, his election campaign. And we're a Colorado Springs affiliate. I mean, we're not even Denver, much less a network.
She took a swing and connected.
Oh, did And so we're sitting there, and of course we get through. It was a great interview. We get through. The handler's head has exploded, a dozen times, and then we go back up, and we walk in and actually, we didn't even go back. We went up and then got our stuff and then left.
I was going to say, we didn't stick around?
We didn't need it because we went and had lunch. But that was really cool. But he had gone and was doing some other stuff, and I was walking through the convention center where it was happening, and there was some other stuff happening in this convention center. And I'm walking down the hallway, and I look over and I see this little kiosk, it's part of a convention, they've got all these little things, little booth. And there's this older couple sitting there, and I'm just like, that's Johnny Cash, and that's June Cash. Holy moly.
Now that would be a holy moly moment.
Right. Same day. And so I walked over, I was like, Johnny Cash? And he said, yes. And introduced myself, met both of them, sat there for about, nothing was going on because they were there for the Dole. There was a part of a bigger convention, and so when Dole got through, everybody would come down and be part of that, and they were just kind of there early and waiting,
just hanging out.
And I just sat there and talked to John and June Cash for about 10-15 minutes, and then I left.
That's pretty cool.
Wow,
that and I've met. Like you guys,
that's
I've met
great storytelling.
That's a spectacular storytelling, dude.
Great storytelling.
I thought the crescendo was up here.
I thought it was all
up here,
and then it went to the whole I'm like, oh, okay, now I see why.
You know what I was expecting the story to go? I was expecting it to go, and I didn't hit record.
Oh, no,
I was really waiting for
we
the
were
shoe
thinking
to
about
drop.
our best moments.
Well, no, I just thought it was just funny.
Not our scariest moment.
I don't know.
Not the ones that almost cost you your career.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
No, that was really cool. Another simpler moment, we were doing press junkets for a movie.
Okay.
And Harrison Ford was coming to town, and so we were doing his, and his handler comes in and says, don't look at him, don't ask him any questions. You got music?
No, you're fine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
he's just riding the levels for us.
Oh, cool. So they come in and don't talk to him, don't look at him and everything. So he comes in and he immediately walks around and shakes everybody's hand in the room.
Don't look at him.
Yes, don't look at him.
I've heard that with him more than once, where people have said, don't talk to him, don't look at him, don't anything, and it's like, really? Okay.
Right. Well, he came around and introduced himself.
Yeah, and it's exactly what happened to my friend too.
Right.
Same. I bet he was in the same room you were. I'll bet any money he was.
Probably. So we're sitting there getting, and there's 16 or so interviews, and they're all those little 7-minute or whatever, boom, 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 and you got a different
Was it for
reporter
Crystal Skull?
I don't even remember the movie, honestly.
Man, I bet it was.
He flew in on his helicopter.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
So he's, we get halfway through. We get about 7 or 8 of them, and his handler comes in and says, would you like to take a break? We're, halfway through. And he said, no, let's just get through this before I kill somebody. Because he hates doing those things. But it was so funny because of this, you grew up, I mean, he's Han Solo.
He's Indiana Jones, man.
Yeah, he's Indiana Jones. He's half of your childhood heroes that you went and saw movies on. So, he's sitting there, and then, and then you think when his handler's going to come in, oh God, this guy's going to be he's going to be miserable. This is going to suck because this is Harrison Ford. You really want to meet him and have a good experience. And then, it wasn't going to be. And then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a smaller thing, but it was neat.
I also remember the time that we had. I don't even remember what it was for, but anyway, they say, "Hey, you're going to do this solo interview with this particular celebrity," and I show up, and it's Sophia Loren, and they're like, so then I'm putting the lav mic on Sophia Loren. She's just like,
yeah,
and I'm like, am I really doing this? And she goes, just Go for it.
I did the same thing with
put your hand up there. I'm like,
same thing with Pat Smith, man. When I put a mic on her once, she just leans down, and I was like.
She's like, just go for it. And I'm like, okay. So Freya Loren's telling me, go for it.
Oh, my God.
The mic.
I would be arrested if Sophia. Wow.
That's such an awesome story, dude.
I was like,
wow.
I was like, anyway.
That is awesome.
And then one other one that was kind of cool for me, Elizabeth Hurley and the guy from Friends. They were doing a movie together.
They were doing
not Joey, the roommate.
Chandler.
Chandler Bing.
Matt.
Yeah. No, not Matt.
Yeah, Matthew.
Matt Perry.
Yeah. So they were doing a movie in Dallas,
right?
And I did some stuff with them, individually, and interviewed them, and that was fine. That was great. But then I go to the Mavs game, because I don't remember they were the playoffs or whatever, but I go to the Mavs game, and it's like, hey, shoot some celebrities while you're there. Of course, they're on the front row there. And I go and I've got my camera in front of them, like, hey, and they're like, hey, shaking my hand, going, hey, we saw you the other day. Like, hey, how's it going? And they remembered who I was, and then several months later, I mean, it may be as much as a year. I'm in Memphis at some conference or something. I'm on Bill Street. I'm in this one little barbecue restaurant or whatever, and here comes Elizabeth Hurley and an entourage, and they go sit in the corner, and I'm with about 3 or 4 other guys that are all photographers, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna walk over to Elizabeth Hurley, and she's gonna know who I am. And they're like, oh, whatever, shut up.
Oh, I'd bet my friend's the world.
So she goes outside to smoke a cigarette, and I walk outside with her, and she looks at me and she goes, Greg? And gives me a hug.
That would have been amazing.
Gives me a
balls,
hug
man.
in front of all those guys.
I would be a puddle on the sidewalk.
And then I'm sitting there going, oh yeah. It's like, I told you so. But she remembered who I was from all those times in Dallas, and and in front of her entourage.
I can't believe, because so many times they'll recognize your face or something and go, oh, you're the camera guy.
But
I know
your name.
But yeah, that's like a whole nother. That's awesome.
And I got a picture somewhere. I don't know what I've done with it, but me and her there at the Bill Street. I never did it. Yeah, no, it's definitely there. But I never
seared.
I never had asked for the picture up until that moment. I finally, she goes, hey, let's take a picture together, and I'm like, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And that was before,
because she wanted a picture with you.
Yes,
that's what it was.
That was pre-iPhone.
I had one of the Red Wings do that to me.
Oh, really?
We were at a Michigan State game, and I saw him on the sidelines, and he's like, hey, Rick, how are you? My buddy looks at me, and he's like, and I go, Dan, how do you, and he goes, you guys make me look good. Because I don't know your names, you make me look good.
Right.
And every time I saw him after that, hey, Rick, how are you? Hey, Rick, every time.
That's cool.
And it was just like, that's awesome, man.
Wow.
So
my kids barely remember my name.
My wife barely remembers.
Right.
So I want to get into this with you, Nigel, real quick, just because now you're doing the freelance and you're working for NFL and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get there?
Yeah, do you trip and fall into that, or do you gotta
how do you go? How do you get on the list where NFL goes, Nigel?
Do you sell your soul?
We want to book you for the rest of the season. I mean, how does that work?
And call you back the next year.
Down in middle the Delta of Mississippi, there's this Crossroads,
and there's this old lady with a snake for $3 in a snake charm.
Somehow I almost believe this story.
Right. So when I was a little kid, my mom was a teacher, and she shot the football games for high school, because we went to a little 2A high school.
Love doing that.
I remember that story.
So she would be on top of the press box, because back in the 70s and early 80s, you didn't have big fancy, especially for 2A and 1A schools, you didn't have a big nice press box. It was heated and cooled you could be in. So it was rain or shine or snow or anything else, you were just on top of the press box. And so I loved going up there, because as a little kid, nobody else could go up there. So, and my mom was up there, so I would always find myself way up there. And then, and she's like, okay, if you're going to be up here, then you're going to have to work. So she taught me how to shoot and so load some film. We were shooting 16mm film at the time. And then after the game, we'd hand that off, and my cousin actually would drive it down to Tyler. And this is in Hopkins County, Sulphur Springs area. Drive it down to Tyler and have it all developed overnight and bring it back, and the coaches would meet Saturday morning and watch the films and everything. But and then if my dad would do a lot of still work for our yearbook, and so if he wasn't able to get there after work with his gear and everything, then I would grab camera and still camera and go down and shoot stills for the yearbook. And I did that until I started playing football in high school. But and then when I went to college, it never occurred to me to do this for a living or to get into it at all for 3 years or so. I kind of floated around in college and various things.
I was about to say, when you were in the RTV program with me, so
right.
Apparently that was after this decision.
Right. Yeah. I was a psychology major first, and a sociology major, and then a criminology major, and then I realized that a lot of those people were there because they were trying to figure out their family problems and all their stuff, and I didn't have that.
I got a psychology minor.
Yeah.
It's been beneficial.
I don't know if it was like this for you. It was for me. I was a music major, very serious musician, like in the symphony and everything like that. And even at ET, I went there on a scholarship for music.
Did not know that.
And bailed on it and went into the RTV full time.
Wow. What did your parents say when you pissed off when you blew off probably pissed them off, but to give up all that money to go RTV, and did they say anything, or they just like
one unpaid art to another?
Very true.
I mean,
you're a starving artist one way or the other.
But I mean, in the end, I got a minor out of it, even though I was a senior at Baylor when I left. So,
wow,
but hey,
that's great.
Here's where I was going with this.
Sorry.
When I started enrolling, see, I had never even fathomed to me to take that up as a living.
Television.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I even goofed around pretending when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I pretended all that stuff, but it never dawned on me. It was like, okay, I'm going to go and advertise. I mean, I thought advertising at one point, but I was destined to go into music because of, all my background. And so I was doing that, but when I started enrolling in those classes, it was just like playing again like a kid. That's how it felt like me.
That's how
when you started making all the videos and stuff, like, and what was so great about the school we went to is like first year out, you can like immediately be doing
your camera stuff in your hands.
If anyone wants a college where they can get hands-on day one, I will always recommend Texas A&M of Commerce. I don't know what the program is like now.
They shut it down.
Oh well, but there is some
because we graduated, Greg.
But there is some sort of program there. I know there is.
Well, unless you're just Harvey, just join JMK and we'll teach you.
Okay, there's always that route.
That's how Harvey's learning.
But yeah,
I recommend people going to YouTube University myself.
To go where?
YouTube University.
Oh yeah, no, that is true. That is true.
It's cheaper.
I mean, Rick always tells me. I mean, because he's told me he's like a class away from his degree, and I'm like, are you ever thought about getting your
let's
degree?
Not put that in the world.
No, but he's like
edit point.
Well,
I'm just kidding, man.
My point was, he said, what's better? 25 years of experience or a college degree?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
In working with video and all that?
Has anybody asked you for a degree
Have they said
in the last 25 years?
Nobody's asked me for a degree check ever. And here's the thing. It was a language class, and it was strictly a scheduling issue, and the way scheduling fell. And I for a year and a half tried to figure this out with the school, and they wouldn't budge. And I was in a situation where I'm like, I can't do, like, this is stupid. I'm not doing this. And they were, and so it ended up just whatever. I was like, I don't care. Yeah. But if anyone asks, I finished my program. I finished all the classes I had to take. I finished my psychology minor. The stupid thing I didn't do, the really stupid thing I didn't do, is I didn't take the 2 more classes for a psychology major.
Oh, yeah.
I could have taken 2 more classes and had a double major, and then at any point, if I wanted to, I could have been like, oh, I can go and get a doctorate in psychology. Like, so as I look back at the stupidity of my decision was I should have taken the 2 more psychology classes.
Right.
And I then could have had,
just options for your life. I
right.
guess, really,
yeah. And my wife has told me time and time again, she's like, you should totally get into being a psychologist. She goes, I think you'd be good at it. I'm like, I don't want to hear that many of other people's problems. I deal with enough people's problems as it is.
Right.
So,
yeah, that was kind of one of my things. I was sitting in a psychology class one time, and all these people were really, they were all freshmen, sophomore level, so they were still it's like, oh, I'm here to try to figure out how my family thinks and how people, blah, blah, blah.
What's
blah,
wrong
blah.
with my mom? What's wrong with my dad? Why do I have daddy issues? Why do I have mommy issues?
I didn't have any of that. I had two parents that were great parents. They're still married. I grew up within, 15 miles of 90% of my entire family. We went to church with them. I mean, it was a small town.
Yeah,
everybody.
I'm in the same way. My whole family was within 15-minute drive.
And so I didn't have that problem. I mean, I don't remember any childhood problems other than just being disciplined like a normal kid would be. But
it's interesting because my dad wasn't around, but my uncles and my mom got me involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters. My grandfather was around.
So you had support.
So so like a lot of those people that are like, oh, my dad, and I'm like, I'm kind of glad he wasn't around. The guy was a piece of garbage, and I had 6 other people step into that place
that weren't.
I changed my last name to my mom's maiden name because they were my family. Wow. This guy wasn't around, so it's like, why do I have this name? This name has no meaning to me other than...
Wow, that's interesting.
I had it for 14 years or 16 years. I don't even care. And it was like, to have... my mom got me involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I still refer to this day to Chris as my brother. And I talked to him. His daughter's getting married next November, and I'm like, I can't wait to go to the wedding.
Cool.
It's like it's family, and it's just these things where it's weird to me how different lives can all affect the way people are. But like our backgrounds, from what I'm hearing, are very similar. Yeah, just different parts of the country.
Right.
And it's just it's so interesting to me the way things come together.
Well, it's football season.
Ooh.
And we do this thing since it's football season, and since. I mean, you're not the only one here that went to school there, but I did too. So, I mean, it's just kind of like one of those things we do. And,
ladies and gentlemen,
for
put
you.
your hands together for your Texas A&M University Commerce Pride Marching Band.
Well, marching band music.
Well, specifically our fight song.
Right.
No, I don't remember it.
I don't remember it. I didn't go to... it was funny because my parents went to East Texas State back, late 60s, early 70s, when I was born. I was a baby, and so my parents would go to, every game. And so evidently I went to every game when I was a baby, toddler. And I don't remember any of them.
Of course not. Why would you?
And during homecoming, they had some friends that were in the Sigma Chi fraternity, I think. And so I would ride on their float, and all this stuff. And I don't remember any of that stuff.
Tell me there's photos.
No, it's 1973 or so, man. There's no photos.
Polaroids?
No, I doubt it.
Or Polaroids only for... I've been watching the Dahmer thing, so Polaroids are only for sickos.
Can't watch that, man.
It's... That's funny.
And then, of course, this is for him as well.
And the only thing else I got to say is, how about them Cowboys?
How about that Cooper Rush?
Actually,
3-0 as a starter.
I mean, you got no complaints thus far. Yeah,
I'm a fan.
I mean,
I think they should let it ride and just...
But he looked so awful in preseason this year.
Dude.
Well, I know, but that's why he didn't get picked up.
Preseason.
That's why he didn't get picked up by another team, because they actually waived him to where he could have been picked up.
Right.
But he did so awful this year in preseason that everybody was like,
wouldn't it be funny if they told him to? You don't play good in games.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do.
We know what you can do.
But
we're not worried about it.
Even though you got Cooper Rush, who's clearly a good quarterback, but you didn't have anybody in front of him because none of the starters were starting. I mean, it was all the 5th and 6th and 7th string, practice squad guys that are trying to make the team.
You're talking about guys
that
are
are
bagging groceries next week.
Right.
They're literally. Every time I watch preseason game and I hear Lions fans get excited, I'm like, they're bagging groceries next week.
Right.
All of them.
Right.
What are you excited about? They beat nobodies.
Right.
You and I should be out on the field. That's how nobodies these guys are.
Right.
Well, one thing I'm really liking is that since he is on the second team and he works with the second team guys, is like one of the receivers that's on the second team has been brought up just because of the history together, and and the charisma and stuff that the chemistry that they have together.
That's the word.
Yeah, I was like, charisma. That doesn't work in football.
Right.
Yes, but And real quick, what's your setup? Like, what kind of cameras are you using currently?
I've got a C300 Mark III, which is the newest version of the C300 line. I've got I've got a couple softbox lights, some LED, a whole kit of LED lighting of various.
You have a FX, a Sony.
I do not have a Sony.
Oh,
I was going to buy the Sony, and I opted for the Canon because it's more user friendly. But I wish I could have one of each. So because a lot of clients ask for that daggum Sony, and I don't like using it, but it does make beautiful pictures. I have to admit, but. I mean, and it edges out the Canon in certain areas because it's full frame, but the Canon, for most of my stuff, which is a lot of, not necessarily shoulder held and run and gun, but it's a lot of quick setup, run, go, move. The Canon's just a more user-friendly option than the Sony cameras.
And this is just a question because I can't remember what he did. Kelly Moore, you know who Kelly Moore is.
Kelly Moore, yeah.
What is his position at the stadium, and what does he do? It has to do with the frequency. He's the frequency.
He's the frequency overlord.
Yeah. But what is that? Yes, like he's the guy you have to like check out all your frequencies at a game.
Yeah, like if so every game my audio tech, who's another East Texas State graduate, Lance Wells, is my audio guy, and which is also my roommate from East Texas State. Long, strange trip it's been as well. Anyway, he has to send anybody who's wanting to use wirelesses in the stadium on game day or any event, sends Kelly an email, basically, and Kelly's got this list of all the frequencies that are available to us, and then he plugs you in, saying, yeah, you can use this range.
And one of the reasons why he's there is so they can organize, like, because all the live media that's actually for the actual broadcast. But on top of that, even the coaches headsets.
Right, because everybody's using wireless. So if you don't have anybody organizing that, everybody will be stepping on everybody's wireless, and you'll get this, and everybody's audio will sound like that. So that'll
All right. Well, thank you, Nigel, for
thanks
for coming on and all that stuff. This is our sign out music.
Which we have 18 seconds where we have to shut up, So.
Yeah, and then we have to start yelling.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming, Nigel.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you guys next time.